Right, let's keep going with the arachnoid mater. It's the middle layer between the pia mater and the dura mater. And it's separated from the pia mater by the subarachnoid space. And inside that subarachnoid space between pia and arachnoid is the cerebrospinal fluid. We'll be talking more about cerebrospinal fluid all along and as we talk about the brain. All right, so there's some trabeculae or little extensions that give this layer its name because they look like a spider web, right, between these two layers, kind of holding it together, and that extends from the arachnoid to the pia mater. So these little webs holding them together, and arachnids are spiders, so there's how we come up with arachnoid layer. All right, so in a cadaver, that's called the subdural space between the dura and the deeper meninges, but that is not in living people. So pia mater, deepest meningeal layer, and so that is the closest to the brain, and it holds the blood vessels onto the brain. So if you're looking at an illustration, I think there's an illustration in the book, half of the brain is covered with the pia mater. You can see kind of a shiny layer, and then the blood vessels underneath, and then the other hemisphere is more of a not as shiny, and there's no blood vessels on that side. The pia mater has been removed. All right, so it's holding the blood vessels to the brain. All right, and so we have extensions of the pia mater holding both layers, the pia and the arachnoid, to the dura, and those are called denticulate ligaments. Denticulate ligaments in the spinal cord tissue. Now, those ligaments are not exactly like the ligaments in the muscles, and throughout some of these body systems coming up, you'll see that word ligament. It's not like the kind of ligaments that hold bones together. All right. All right, so there we are. There we have the spinal cord, right? So let's use the highlighter here. Spinal cord is in this, so this looks like a fresh dissection. You see that anterior median fissure, so that's pointed forward in the body, in the middle. All right, and then we see this thin pia mater that's more like a little fabric. There are the denticulate ligaments holding everything together there. These are the actual roots. Okay, so those are ventral roots, right, because we don't see the ganglion. There's the dura mater, and of course reflected means peeled back. There's that spinal blood vessel. A little bit farther back we see the dorsal root ganglion, and this is a ventral root. We see rootlets and ventral roots. You'll see this also in that video, the unfixed spinal cord. Gray matter surrounds the central canal, and that's in these horn shapes or H shape in the spinal cord, and that has cell bodies or soma and glial cells. Glial cells, remember, are the support cells. The white matter indicates that it's axons, and those will be mostly myelinated. It's the myelination that gives it the white appearance, and those are in tracks or columns running up and down. And so if it's myelinated, it's a track or column, and it's carrying that action potential for some distance, right? So the myelination is what allows that action potential to move quickly and over a distance. And so that's separate from the gray matter. Let's have a look there. All right. So in this H shape, it represents the gray matter. This is our white matter. Posterior side, anterior side. You notice that anterior median fissure goes almost to the central canal. So the central canal is right in there. Okay. So this cross section is through an area where the roots are coming out. There's our dorsal root. There's the dorsal root ganglion with the cell bodies of those axons. All right. Ventral root. So you can see that these roots are short, and then the nerve itself will be coming off this way, and it will be a mixed nerve having both motor and sensory functions. All right. There we see the arachnoid motor torn up in this light micrograph. Lateral horn, not much of a horn. Anterior horn, more convincing of a horn. Posterior horn of that gray matter. All right. So here we can see some function in the horn. Functional organization of gray matter. Sensory nuclei, somatic and visceral. What are somatic and visceral? All right, so visceral is going to be more the organs inside the body. Somatic is going to be sensing the outside environment. And then we have our motor nuclei, motors going out, sensories coming in. All right. There is our ventral root, dorsal root, sensory nuclei, somatic. So this, we're going to remember that the dorsal is sensory, incoming. This is incoming, therefore these are sensory nuclei. The motor nuclei are outgoing in the ventral root, therefore these are motor. All right, posterior horn. This we can kind of see the lateral horn there, a little bit of a bump in that gray matter. Anterior horn, anterior median fissure, right? Ventral is motor, dorsal sensory. These are cell bodies in that ganglion making it bigger. All right. So the white matter in the spinal cord is carrying the action potential one way or the other, right? So the sensory columns and tracks are going up, motor is coming down, all right? Ascending and descending. So ascending is going to be sensory, descending is going to be motor, all right? We have the posterior white, anterior white, lateral white columns. So those are on either sides of that gray matter. They can be sensory and ascending or motor and descending. All right. So you want to know the columns and know that there are tracks. So this is the posterior white column. Okay. It's the posterior white column, and it has sensory tracks. Sure, because this is dorsal, and there's going to be sensory on this side. Leg, hip, trunk, and arm, these are tracks within the column. All right. Now we are in the anterior white column. Lateral white column. All right. Motor tracks are in the anterior gray horn. So they are coming down. So I want you to know that you know the columns, you can identify a column and know that the tracks are within the columns. All right, 31 pairs of spinal nerves, and these are coming out between the vertebrae. You have 8 cervical nerves, 12 thoracic, 5 lumbar, 5 sacral, and 1 coccygeal. All right, so this should be familiar, right? There's our cervical portion of the spinal cord. There's a little bit of an enlargement there. There's our thoracic. So these thoracic nerves are just coming out straight between the ribs, and those are susceptible to shingles, And so when they come out, that shingles are in a straight line, or they're in a line across the body. All right, another little enlargement in that lumbosacral area. Conus medullaris there at the end of the spinal cord, inferior tip, and then there's a cauda equina. You can really see this well in that video. All right, let's keep going.